This is Rammy, bringing you news, events, interviews and information from the heart of Ramsbottom with your host Lee.
The majority of the information obtained for this episode was from a report drawn up in 2014 by the owners of the land. They commissioned a heritage report from Atelier Urban Architects, and it goes into great detail with regards to the site and its importance to the town throughout our history. Ramsbottom Paper Mill, also known as Trinity and Holcombe Paper Mill, was owned by James Broadbent Ingham. He was born in 1815 in Bradford. James eventually entered into partnership with Joseph Hughes and Joseph Barnes at Whitehall Paper Mill in Chapel on the Firth between 1838 and 1848. James then went into partnership with his brother Samuel Broadbent Ingham at the Shuttleworth Paper Mill from 1848, and soon after building his own mill on the Irwell in Ramsbottom. That mill will become known as Ramsbottom Paper Mill and also Holcombe Paper Mill. The location of the paper mill was ideal. There was a good source of water from the River Irwell, which provided power and also provided the ability to get rid of any waste products. And there was also the train station really close by. And there was a recent, the bridge on Bridge Street had also recently been built as well. So travel routes were really convenient for the mill, and the mill was perfectly placed. The original build date of the mill could be between 1857 and 1865. I found several different sources, one source being the build register from Ramsbottom Heritage Society, which they're pretty accurate for everything they have, and they state a build date of 1859. I also have found another source which references 1865, and also another source which references 1857. So it's around about 1858, 1859, around there is probably the best guess for when the mill was actually built. But even still, the building and the chimney has obviously been there for around about 150 years. So it's been a part of Ramsbottom's history and life for a long time. The chimney originally stood at a height of around 46 metres, and it was constructed of brick. Brick constructed chimneys are generally pretty commonplace throughout history, and this chimney was just like any other that was built in the Victorian period. Prior to the demolition works, the chimney had a metal conical flue on the top. This would have been an additional modification towards the latter part of the 20th century. The purpose of this flue will have been to improve the performance of the chimney and to add some weatherproofing features. For the mill itself, paper reduction was a large industry in the 19th and 20th century across Lancashire and Greater Manchester. Traditionally, the paper was made using rags and cloth, so not fibres and things like that, which is what I originally thought, and there was a good supply of cloth and rags around the area due to the massive textile industry boom that we had around Manchester. In fact, Greater Manchester is still one of the largest suppliers of paper in the whole of the UK. With the popularity of the River Irwell for other mills along the line, the demand for the water power was actually quite high. Once all the other mills were functioning, the supply that the River Irwell could provide was a bit of a problem. It basically was not sufficient to feed all of the mills. So this led to the construction of a mill race and a sluice, which is still there today, running down the side of the mill. In addition to water power, the site also required coal, and this was transported in using the now East Lancashire Railway line. There was even a section of track dedicated onto this site. You can actually see this railway link on the link on the show notes for this episode, which is bringing up a picture of on Flickr, which has been made by the Ramsbottom Model Railway Club. The mill closed in 2008, which caused around 90 job losses in our area. At the time, the mill was owned by Mondi, hence the Mondi paper mill being the last known owner. Although the chimney itself is not actually a registered building, it does fall within the Ramsbottom Conservation Area, since this was extended specifically to include this chimney. So one of the questions now is, what will happen to this site? There have been several suggestions throughout the years and several proposals put forward for the actual site by two large supermarkets. Those supermarkets were Netto and Sainsbury's. Now, Sainsbury's were the first to actually put their request in. We've already got three pretty large supermarkets in Ramsbottom, those being Morrison's, Aldi and Tesco. I also know from having spoken to Paul of the Chocolate Cafe that he has had an intention or an idea, and he's put forward proposals to the business group that he would actually like to build a chocolate factory there. A little bit Willy Wonka, but his idea is to have a chocolate factory area for obviously himself and his chocolate creations, but also to have some other smaller units, which will include smaller, like artisan style, own craft making things, a bit like what you get at the farmers market, however on a more permanent scale. So not every week, but obviously you'll get it there every day. Other than Paul Morris showing his interest in the site, there has also been an interest from residential development. Well, anyway, that was a brief look into the history of the Ramsbottom paper mill. Thanks once again for listening, and I will join you next week. See you later.
Thanks for listening to the show. This podcast exists to interview local businesses, local group members, and Rammy individuals in an effort to bring more attention to our fantastic town. If you like This Is Rammy, please consider subscribing, leaving us a review, or sharing with your friends.